Tim's News Explosion. 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 Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Tim's News Explosion. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube and D-Live channels, as well as on the interactive Entropy software, where you can, during the live show, send through a direct question, or even better, send through a super chat to support the show. It is Monday, the 21st of February, 2022. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where on the day when Australia welcomes back international tourists after 2 years, the National Centre for Resilience COVID Quarantine Camp network is all ready to go. There is the one in Queensland, Wellcamp, and then there is the one in northern Melbourne, the Mickleham quarantine camp. So if your papers are not in order when you arrive at Melbourne Airport and you haven't had your shots, then you'll be bussed off. There is no railroad yet to the Mickleham quarantine camp. You'll be bussed there for a 7-day stay at least for your expense. And Nine News, they took their viewers on a tour of the new Mickleham quarantine camp just on the weekend.
Good evening. Victoria's first purpose-built quarantine facility in Melbourne's north, giving guests access to fresh air, will start accepting unvaccinated international travellers from Monday. The trouble-plagued hotel system will soon be consigned to history, but 560 staff will still be employed to run the new isolation hub. Mimi Becker reports.
A $200 million quarantine facility 2 years into a worldwide pandemic, but the state government insists it's not a white elephant.
It would have been great in 2020, but here we are now, and this will be a resource that we will always look back on and say, what a great investment.
The site will have the capacity to host up to 1,000 people from April, but when opening on Monday, just 10 unvaccinated travellers are expected to arrive.
The way it's built, though, is that you can scale up and scale down. We can run it as small, the 250 or the 500.
There's single, double, family and accessible rooms, all with en-suites. Guests will be fed 3 meals a day, with the hub's major focus on ventilation and infection control.
We always knew with hotels it was a challenge to get the ventilation standards, and we took a lot of time to ensure that was safe. Here, when we're in open air, no corridors, it is a lot easier.
Right now, Victoria can accept just 250 unvaccinated travellers a week who will be forced to pay to stay on the site. But members of the community and frontline workers who are COVID positive and cannot safely quarantine at home will be welcome for free.
Whether it's the next variant, the next pandemic, whatever it is, we are ready now with a purpose-built facility.
Yes, it's the gold standard gulag COVID camp there. Savnik Pure Blood has asked, is there a swimming pool and a post office? Well, not yet, but you saw that it's already got the chimneys there for air ventilation purposes, and you got to see their big kitchen with all the ovens there for cooking meals. So it looks like it's all ready to go there. Now, for the international tourists who have got their paperwork in order, they were greeted today in Sydney by a complete public transport shutdown because of an industrial dispute between the Perrottet government and the public transport workers Union, at the airport, they got an entourage of drag queens and surf lifesavers. So if you're from a socially conservative country and you're visiting your socially conservative relatives who've settled in Australia, then you'll be treated to some of our local lifestyles. And now Scott Morrison, he did a press conference at Melbourne Airport yesterday to I guess officially reopen. There was no sort of a ribbon cutting ceremony, but just to basically say, yep, this is exciting. But for some reason, Scott Morrison did the press conference at the departure lounge here, and that makes for an awful photo there when he's behind in the polls. There's 2 months to the election, and there's the departures sign above his sad face there. And his photo ops, as some people call workplace cosplay. You know how they always go to a building site and put on the hard hat and the yellow vest. Scott Morrison has actually decided in these various workplaces that he visited to get his hands dirty, or perhaps his eyes are blinded, and so this is the montage of all of his new skills lately.
Take me to the April sun in Cuba. Oh.
Used to be a tradesman before.
No.
His blinding insight.
You said here?
Yeah.
Yes, luckily, so far, Scott Morrison was not harmed by that blinding light there. But yes, the sign of his electoral fortunes at the moment. But he got a miracle in 2019, hoping for a second election miracle in 2022, which I guess if he was a Catholic would make him a saint. But yes, Australia's international borders opening on the day when our COVID quarantine camps, their networks expanded. We've become globally famous for our COVID camps, starting with the National Centre for Resilience at Howard Springs in Darwin, when some detainees escaped. That was when Michael Gunner, the Chief Minister, was rounding up all positive cases and close contacts in the Northern Territory and putting them in that camp there. But if there is some sort of silver lining to what's going on in Canada's capital, Ottawa, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau enacting the Enabling Act, the Emergencies Act, to basically he can do anything he wants, freeze the bank accounts, remove by force anyone associated with the Canada truckers convoy there. Trudeau going full fascist, that is certainly making Australia look like basically we're blending into all the other nations that have vaccine passports and mandates there. And now Trudeau's Royal Canadian Mounted Police, it's not a police breakup of a freedom rally unless there is an old lady that they bowl over.
Peace, love, and happiness. Peace, love, happiness.
Amen. Amen.
Peace, love,
Happiness. Peace.
You guys are breaking my heart. This is peace, love, and happiness. Peace. We are at peace with the protest. We are at peace with the protest.
Hold the line. Here comes the horses. They have the horses coming. Hey, stand down! Oh my God! Oh my goodness! Look what you did! Look what you did to her! Look what you did to her! Look what you did to her! You trampled a lady who is inaccessible! Shame on you! Shame on every one of you! Shame on you! On you! You just a lady who was a walker! She had a walker and she just got crushed. They just trampled a lady with a walker. Shame on you guys! Shame on you! What are you doing?
Stay peaceful!
Shame on you guys! You just trampled a lady with a walker!
Now, thankfully, that lady she's recovering in hospital. There were some reports that she had died, but thankfully she's recovering. But yeah, that was both elder abuse and animal cruelty. The Mounties getting the horses to do their dirty work there, and of course we've seen that in Australia as well with the police horses to break up the Sydney Freedom Rally, and of course the elder abuse that happened in Melbourne with Victoria Police knocking that old lady to the ground, and when she was hurt on the ground, pepper spraying her. I saw that my mic got unplugged there for a moment. It keeps on happening. I don't know what's happening. I've pulled the mic out and it's come back in again, but I think I caught it in the bud there. Now, some say that Trudeau is just taking inspiration from his father, Fidel Castro, which a lot of people believe is his father, or his other father, Pierre Trudeau, who declared martial law when there was a separatist movement in the Canadian French province of Quebec in the 1970s. But maybe he's also taking inspiration from the country that he said he admires, Trudeau.
Even with Sun TV watching for any slip, he was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say, we need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility that I know Stephen Harper must dream about of having a dictatorship.
Yes, Justin Trudeau said that back in 2015 before he became Prime Minister. But he's probably also doing the bidding of his globalist masters because he is a graduate leader of the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab has praised him and bragged about putting people into the Trudeau cabinet who are World Economic Forum graduates.
And I have to say, when I mention now names like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
And that's true in Argentina too. Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. Mm-hmm. I'm with the president, who is a young global leader. As you know, the theme of this annual meeting is Mastering the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Now, who could represent such a world better than you, Prime Minister? We are very glad that at the beginning of this meeting, you are talking to us to represent also a new, open Canada. I want to use this opportunity also to thank our Canadian constituency, which always has been a very loyal and very much engaged constituency here at the Forum. But now, I think with you, together with our constituents, Prime Minister, we can make sure that in the future we strengthen the cooperation even more with your country. Prime Minister, we are very much looking forward to listen to you.
You could not design a more cliche globalist villain than the actual globalist villain, Klaus Schwab, who is extremely open about how he is planting all of his global leaders into all the governments of the world there. And of course, it should be clear to everyone by now that Trudeau is not implementing these emergency powers for health safety reasons. It's because he doesn't like the truckers and doesn't like their cry for freedom. He previously said they have unacceptable views. The Mounties stampede on Saturday that led to Tiananmen Square trending on Twitter. Castro Jr. has also been trending on Twitter, but so has Hitler blackface there. There's one of the hilarious photoshops there of Trudeau in his favorite dress up. I'm not sure if he's ever been photographed wearing that. That's of course a mock-up there. Now the globalists, they also did one of their old tricks on the weekend. One of Jeffrey Epstein's closest friends, some said Epstein's best mate and pimp, Jean-Luc Brunel, was found dead in his Paris prison cell, and the video cameras in his cell were not running at the time he died. And obviously the meme, hey, I've seen this one. I mean, they're either they like, obviously it's the same way that they suicided Epstein. Well, it hasn't been deemed a suicide yet, Jean-Luc Brunel's death, but Epstein's death was deemed a suicide. But yes, they've done this again. And it's either they think that the public are so stupid that they'll buy it, or they just think they can get away with it again because they got away with Epstein. But it's not all going the globalists' way. Obviously, as I just went through, Trudeau has having to go to the most brazen totalitarian dictatorship measures to crush the resistors to global tyranny and freedom lovers. The globalists are also lamenting that Omicron through because it's infected so many people, and it's a milder variant. It's built up a lot of natural immunity. And this is what Bill Gates, he lamented this probably the most because he's been the biggest pusher of the COVID vaccines. This was his remarks at the Munich Security Conference on the weekend.
You know, sadly, the virus itself, particularly the variant called Omicron, is a type of vaccine. That is, it creates both B-cell and T-cell immunity, and it's done a better job of getting out to the world population than we have with vaccines. If you do sero surveys in African countries, you get well over 80% of people have been exposed either to the vaccine or to various variants. And so, what that does is it means the chance of severe disease, which is mainly associated with being elderly and having obesity or diabetes, those risks are now dramatically reduced because of that infection exposure. And, it's sad. We didn't do a great job on therapeutics. Only here, 2 years in, do we have a good therapeutic. Vaccines, it took us 2 years to be in oversupply. Today, there are more vaccines than there is demand for vaccines. And, that wasn't true. And next time we should try and make it, instead of 2 years, we should make it more like 6 months, which certainly, some of the standardized platform approaches, including mRNA, would allow us to do that. So, it took us a lot longer this time than it should have.
Now, the reason why Bill Gates is sad is because back at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, he said that the vaccines were the final solution to the pandemic. That's what he actually said in an interview with Stephen Colbert. You see that nervous laugh there. Yeah, how absurd. But also at that Munich Security Conference, Bill Gates said that another pandemic is coming. He said it's all but certain. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, we've seen some scares reported in the mainstream media. What was it? There was a person in the UK who died of lasso fever when they came home from Africa. That's an Ebola type virus that comes from rats. And then I think late last year there was a person in the US who was infected with monkeypox. Got it when they came back from Nigeria there. So we'll see what happens in that regard there. Now, I want to spend the next portion of the show because it's important for those in the freedom vaccine skeptic community to make sure that they don't spread clear misinformation which will discredit the freedom movement and play into the hands of the globalists. And this is what we saw happen this week with some misinterpretation of the ABS COVID deaths. So both Paul Murray and Rita Panahi said that out of all the COVID deaths in Australia, people who've died with COVID, only 83 were killed solely by COVID, which is not true. It goes further down here. So what the ABS report shows is that there were 2,556 deaths caused by COVID-19 in Australia based on death certificate in this time, with an additional 83 deaths were likely caused by non-COVID-19 factors. And it goes further down here that if I can find this here, that it was, where is it? I should have made sure I highlighted this here. So anyway, but yes, I read that ABS report after Paul Murray and Rita Panahi said that only 83 Australians had died solely from COVID. So I looked into that and it didn't seem right there. Now, the other bit of misinformation that's being promoted is that the vaccines cause AIDS or VAIDS, which stands for acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Now, this is based on a series of recent circumstantial news and historical news. So there obviously was the University of Queensland COVID vaccine trial that was abandoned in late 2020 because they used a component of HIV in the spike protein, which caused HIV false positives. So the trial was abandoned because the federal government believed that if a COVID vaccine gave you false positive for HIV, wouldn't really inspire vaccine confidence. And there was a couple of months before that an article in the medical journal The Lancet which talked about that very subject, HIV components being used in some of the vaccines that were in development, which is not the case with the vaccines that ended up being approved and got into people's arms. I'm getting to that here. The story broke in the Netherlands. This was a report in the Netherlands about a supposedly new mutant strain of HIV, but it wasn't new. It's been around since the 80s. So that was a bit of fake news there. Also, a bit of circumstantial news that was used to push forward this VAIDS theory was that Moderna developing an mRNA HIV vaccine, which people made the conclusion that, they're making a new vaccine to cure the AIDS that they caused with their COVID vaccine. Well, Moderna is an mRNA startup, and so they obviously want to try and make more mRNA vaccines as well. And then, not this week, but the week before, it was HIV testing week. And so Prince Harry was promoting people to get tested because more straights are getting HIV now than homosexual men because straights don't take the precautions that gay men do because they know they're more at risk. And here's a fact check that was on Euronews, which I thought was insightful.
Let me show you one example of a false claim that has continued to circulate. In the United Kingdom, it is the National Week for testing HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. And that has led some people to make false online claims that there is an apparent link between COVID vaccines and a new form of HIV. Many people make reference to an apparent disease called vaccine-acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or VAIDS. And other people are also making false claims that a COVID-19 vaccine might actually have created the new HIV variant that was recently discovered in the Netherlands. But those claims are all false. Let me show you why. Firstly, if you go onto the original study that found that new HIV variant, you can see that it is not new in itself, and the variant was actually around long before COVID vaccines existed. Here it says that it first arose in the late 1980s and 1990s, and has actually been declining since around 2010. So there is no link between a COVID vaccine and that new VB variant. But of course, more widely, there is no clinical evidence to suggest any connection between COVID vaccinations and any form of AIDS. You yourself can go onto the website of the European Centre for Disease Control and Prevention or the World Health Organization. And if you search for VAIDS, you will get no results. It is not a condition that they are aware of. And given that billions of people have now had at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, health experts say that any such condition like this would have been documented.
So there you go. Don't fall for the VAIDS fake news. Actually, while that was playing, found out that going back to this fact check, the ABS report released on February 15th, the number of deaths where COVID alone was reported on the death certificate, so they definitely died from COVID, is 220. So not that much higher than 83, but yeah, shows how hard it is to determine if who died with and from COVID. Did them dying with COVID accelerate their death if they had pre-existing conditions or were elderly? This is why, well, there is such a media frenzy about the fact the Queen has tested positive for COVID. This follows Prince Charles and Princess Camilla testing positive for COVID. Now, even though the elderly at high risk from having severe health outcomes, because of COVID. It's not a death sentence, and the Queen would have been triple jabbed, and she can take some of those approved antivirals now, or she's known to ride horses, so maybe she has some ivermectin in some of the royal stables there. I saw this tweet from one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Kate Gregovich, who said, "Today my triple vax 95-year-old patient with mild symptoms greeted me with a smile and a fist bump and was well enough to go home because the vaccines are awesome." No, she didn't treat the Queen because she's Melbourne doctor. Well, that's good for her patient there. Let's hope that the Queen recovers. God save the Queen, because we don't want King Charles or King William sooner than we need to there. And there have been 100-year-olds who have recovered from COVID as well. Now, following up from a continuing saga, which is the convict warrior resistance Aboriginal flag burning video. Lydia Thorpe continues to claim that the video is a threat to her personal safety because of this sign in the background of the flag burning video, Lydia Thorpe Abhor. Now, Australian Meditation's Telegram channel calls lots of leftist women whores, which probably helped tip off White Rose Society and Nick McKenzie that they were one of the masked Sikh hailers in that video there. But Lydia Thorpe gave an interview to the National Indigenous Television Network, part of SBS, where she said that the authorities are not taking this threat to her safety seriously.
Senator, thanks for joining us. Firstly, tell us about the threat and how worried you are. And have you had a meeting, and what was the outcome of that meeting?
Well, hello to you two deadly presenters, and thanks for having me. The threat happened on the 19th of January, so leading up to Invasion Day. Obviously, it was a threat to put us on notice, I suppose, on our annual day of protest and our annual day of mourning. My staff notified the AFP, which is the proper process, and I'm still waiting a response. So I'm a little bit in the dark.
So, Senator, yesterday you were sitting in the Senate Estimates Committee and you were able to fire off some questions. And you asked a lot of the ASIO boss questions about the rise of far-right extremist groups. What was their response?
They're certainly aware of the rise in this terrorist group. In fact, they've been named a terrorist group from the Australian government. But the response to this kind of a terrorist group is not the same response you would see for others that they've investigated in the past. So from my experience, it seems that there's one rule for one lot of mob, and certainly one rule for, what I feel is a black senator. And it certainly reminded me of Black Lives Matter, and I feel that it doesn't matter what level you're at or what role you hold in your community. If you're a black life, then it really doesn't matter, what position you hold. I'm waiting for the authorities to give me some kind of direction as to where I can go and what I can do that's not going to end up with me being harmed by these right-winged racists that are neo-Nazis.
And Senator, you call for an inquiry, but sort of longer term, what protections would you like to see put in place?
Well, look, it is subject to a lot of behind-the-scenes investigations. So I'm not able to comment on a lot of things, but I just want to be protected to be able to do my job.
Now, she said, Lydia Thorpe, in that interview that the warriors of the convict resistance have been listed as a terrorist organisation by the federal government, which is not true. Though Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews, she did designate the Nationalist Social Order as a terrorist group. I'd never heard of them, but apparently they are also known as the Adam Waffen division, which that's the group that Slack Bastard always accuses Andy No of giving information to. So the Nationalist Social Order joins the base and the Sonirak division as being far-right, extreme neo-Nazi organizations on the federal government's designated terror list there. Now, Lydia Thorpe, she later in the week had a meltdown in Senate estimates at Assistant Attorney General Amanda Stoker because the federal government, by buying the copyright of the Aboriginal flag from its creator, Harold Thomas, and putting it in the public domain, though Flag World still has the exclusive manufacturing rights, Lydia Thorpe has now claimed that it has been colonized, the Aboriginal flag, as opposed to previously being in a copyright situation. So this is how she exploded at Amanda Stoker.
I'm getting away from the flag, which is now Australian. And my next question is,
just like all Indigenous people, Australian.
Sorry?
Or just like all Indigenous people, they are Australian. It's wonderful.
Really?
Yes. I think it's an uncontroversial proposition that Indigenous Australians are Australians, and that inviting all Australians. That inviting all Australians to be a part of it.
Order, Minister.
I'm being white-splained here.
I don't think that's a point of order,
I'm
Senator
being
Thorpe.
white-splained.
That is not a point of order.
I'm not going to be told by a white senator that I'm an Indigenous Australian. That is insulting.
Senator Thorpe, that is not a point of order.
Absolutely.
It might be best if you move on to your next question.
Okay. I'm a Gunai, Japarang, Brabralang, Gunditjmara woman.
Yeah, I'd never heard of white-splaining before, Kresha. I'd heard of mansplaining. I wonder if there's also straight-splaining or hetero-splaining or cis-splaining there. That's all plays on those splaining terms. They're all identity politics tactics to basically get a white, cis, hetero, male or female, depending on because of your skin color or your race or your gender or your sexuality there. Now, I've gone way over time here. I don't know if Marg Asian splains in the chat, Senator Slayer. I think I'm back now. I don't know how to fix this, why the mic continues to unplug there, but at the end of the show now, so another week has gone past where Russia hasn't invaded Ukraine, but it's definitely going to happen now, Biden said, and several mainstream media outlets. And Russia last week trolled the US after their prediction of February 16th for Invasion Day didn't come ahead. So the Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said, please provide us with the next invasion date, or that you think is going to be the invasion date when Russia's going to invade Ukraine, so we can book our holidays for the year then. It's more turning into just a massive troll by Putin to basically whip the West into a frenzy and cry wolf that there's going to be invasion when there's not. There was more military exercises between Russia and Belarus to basically whip up more Western frenzy there as well. So, I mean, if they keep saying it, the West, that Russia is definitely going to invade Ukraine this time, they're hoping for the broken clock theory that eventually they'll be right. And back on the China front, a Chinese Navy ship, they pointed a laser at an Australian RAF plane, a laser which could have blinded the pilot, endangered the fleet there. So that is obviously an act of intimidation because it was Australia's economic zone there. All right, I've gone way over time, so that's the show for tonight. Over on Odyssey and BitChute, because it got deleted from the Unshackled YouTube channel, so there'll be no shows on the Unshackled YouTube channel for 2 weeks. Andy Nolcher's interviews at Anaku Plua. He's spoken to Max Egan and Richard and Rail Gage there. Andy is at Mexico at the moment. He's probably going to stay over there for quite a while there. So yes, Senator Slayer, Max Egan, same laser. Is that the same laser that shot Laser Man while he's sleeping? Yeah, it might have been the Chinese that shot Max Egan with a laser there. Who knows there? Yes, I'll get the pronunciation right. Annika Polka. It's a play on the town in Mexico, which it's held at every year. I'll be back later in the week for a Wilmsfront and a Trad Tasman talk with Dewey de Boer. So Wilmsfront, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time on the Wilmsfront channel Thursday, and then Trad Tasman talk Friday, 6 p.m. Melbourne time, which will be on the Wilmsfront channel as well. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you later.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.